So yeah, what I wanted to do is I actually wanted to relate what I do today to my HB class, my HB live class that you can get at hblive.me, and I also want to go in and you know, delve in there a little bit more. So today will be more of a lesson on graduation than just specific haircuts, but great tools that you can use within haircuts. Going to start with a haircut and then I'm going to go a little bit further into it. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. That's what this is all about. It's free education and it's free for you to ask questions. So please feel free to do that. And I'm going to take you through the what, the why, the how, the when, and most importantly, the what if of everything that I do. I'm a haircutting educator. I'm a career educator. I've been doing this since day one, since somebody gave me the approval to do this thing. And yeah, so I've got a wealth of experience and knowledge, and I'd like to share that with you guys again today. So thanks again for joining me. So let's get started. One of the kind of techniques that I keep posting on my Instagram, Daniel Joseph Muldoon, is this front to back bob. And it's also on Hairbrained hblive.me as well. We do a tutorial that you can access. You can get lifetime access for that this moment too. And so I wanted to kind of delve into that and explain a lot about it. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do quite a long, heavy bob, and then I'm going to graduate it. And it uses this sectioning pattern. Now the reason why I section this way is so that I can actually establish my perimeter from the front and work backwards. Traditionally we're taught to work from the back and move forwards. And really, if you analyse what's going on there, is you're starting where there's loads of hair and you're finishing where there's not as much hair, because the hairline is much higher in the front, excuse me, than it is in the back. Let's get it locked in. So you can see the hairline through the front is all the way up here, and then in the back it's all the way down here. So there's a lot more density falling on that outline in the back than there is in the front. And also in the front you've got this like thing that sticks out from the ear. I call it the gremlin, right? Or a gargoyle. It's something that's just attached to the head and it sticks out. And everyone's got one, but they're all quite different, you know? And then the hair has to live over that ear. So by taking this sectioning pattern, what it does is it allows me to take the entire hairline from front to back. So I've got no surprises. I'm not starting in the back with a little bit and I'm stood behind this corner, and then as I move up I get to creep forward with the haircut, right? And then all of a sudden when I turn this corner I realise that it might be too short or it might be too long. Why? Because I was stood behind a corner trying to cut this haircut. She can't see it and I can't see that destination. So instead of working to that destination, I'm going to flip that GPS and we're going to work from the destination to the back area. And what that does is, if you notice, see, I've seen other people do this, and what they do is they start like this at the front, which is great, because it's using the concept of starting from the front. But what you're doing here is you've got less hair that's falling over the ear, right? That's the whole point in doing the sectioning, is so that we can actually suppress the ear. We can press that down. And if you think about it, this is literally how that person is going to wear the front part of her hair or his hair, right? It's not going to be just this little slither of hair. So why would we take that section and risk creating a hole there when we can just allow it to be a little bit more denser? That's how it's going to be worn. Now it's suppressing the ear as much as it can. So that's kind of a bit of the logic behind the sectioning. And to start from the front is also a psychological thing. You know, when you start in the back, your client's freaking out at every single possible second as to what's going on, where's that length? And if you think about it, when the client sits in the chair, they don't really reference the length on the back spine area or the neck area back here, or shoulders, do they? They really kind of just reference the front area. So I'm going to start from that point, and I'm going to make sure that she's happy with it. And once she's happy, then we can get moving. Right? I don't want that awkward, anxiety, butterfly feeling, not the good butterflies, of like creeping around for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then you get there and you're both mutually disappointed. I want you to be successful at this. So that's the whole premise of starting through the front. Now, I'm not going to make this a one-length bob, and what I mean by that is I'm not going to bring everything down onto a perimeter outline. I'm just going to make my perimeter with this first section through here. With that, that's going to give me a guideline to work the interior and graduate it. Alright, let's get started. So the key thing here is to add plenty of water. So you have to remember, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to bring the hair down to 0 degrees, down to natural fall. That means no elevation, no over direction, no tension, right? So what I want is I want the hair to naturally fall into natural fall. And what's going to do that? Water. Because gravity will pull the water down through the hair. Alright, so what's happening right now is gravity's pulling that water, making the hair fall where I want it to go. So kind of that's half the battle. He's trying to figure that out, making it easier on himself. So what we'll do is we'll start at the weakest point. Okay, what's the weakest point? Right here. Right, that's the ear area. And that is, if you can see through it, it's almost like there's a wheel well through there. Because the hairline comes up and around the ear and down. So this is the weakest point, and then we have a little heavier area through here. So I'm not going to start there, and I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start here at the weakest spot. If I get this spot in perfectly, I don't have an ear in front of the ear, and I don't have an ear behind the ear, so I'm not going to risk the line jumping. But if I start in a place where there's no ear, I always risk creating that hole. So let's try to eliminate that immediately, okay? Let's work smarter and not harder. Right, we were all, well, not all of us, but the majority of us were taught to start the bob from the back and work through to the front. That's probably the hardest way you could possibly do it. And if you can do it, yay, that's amazing for you, right? But it's working harder and not quite smarter, is it, you know? Yes, you have a Jedi skill that you can cut a bob from back to front, but that's great. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you can get through it as efficiently, as quick as possible, because there's other stuff to do within the haircut. So let's get going. Combing the hair into position. Now, what I don't want to do is I don't want to now go and comb back through the roots and pull on that hair too much. What I want to do is I want to go below the ear and use the larger side of the comb and now work down to where I want to cut my outline. Once I've got down to that area, I need to release any excessive tension, right? This has to look good without you involved. So if I keep pulling on the hair and pulling on the hair and pulling on the hair, I can expect the line to change each time I do that. So don't pull on it, put it in position, now tap above the ear, release any excess tension all the way down to that length. We're going to cut it at the longest we can, that's going to be right above the shoulder. On this mannequin, it's right at the neckline. If it's below the shoulder, it's not a bob anymore, is it? Because the line is now broken by the shoulder. And a bob is an uninterrupted line from front to back and back to front and side to side. So as soon as it hits the shoulder, it's going to flip and it's going to split and all that. So the bob has a hard time being a bob at that stage. It's not really moving freely. So we're going to keep it as long as possible. Now that I've got that in there, I'm going to cut through to this front area. What I want to avoid is I don't want to cut this in front of the cheekbone because that's not how she's going to wear it, or they're going to wear it, right? So we're going to make sure that it lives behind the cheekbone in the side. The side is from the cheekbone, right? That's a vertical round of the head right there, to the same vertical round in the back here at the corner of the hairline. So I'm going to cut it within those parameters. You could use a little clip there if you wanted to, if the hair is a little unruly and doesn't stay where you want it to stay. I would think this texture is probably the limit. It's got a wave to it. Any more than it's going to start being a curl. Very difficult to put this in like I'm doing with a curly texture of hair. Fingers have to be used because you need consistent tension. Or you do it completely freehand and visual. Right? So now bringing this into the back. Now the key thing here is I'm actually moving with the haircut. I'm not stood in one position, so I'm not cutting this entire panel this and staying here, and then I'm going to move over here and cut this. I'm not standing in a square, right? This is not a square, it's actually a horseshoe. So the shape of this line, right, the actual shape of it is always going to be a horseshoe. The angle of it can change, right? So I will walk around with it so I can stand directly in front of it and I can cut within my vision. If I don't cut within my vision, then that line can go shorter or it can go longer. I don't know because it's gone past here, right? So, you know, a little bit more common sense used when you're doing this, excuse me. All right, let's get this outline in there and then we can graduate it. So now, taking this all the way through. Now you'll see what's happening is I'm bending at the knees so that I can keep the upper part of my body as upright as possible. And what that does is it allows me not to get like this with it and too close visually, right? I actually want to be back here so I can see the big picture. So I know whether that line is level or not, or it's starting to be angled. If you get closer, you don't know if that's happening, right? By stepping back, you start to see more peripheral vision and you can see what's happening. So below the hairline, again, not raking through this all the time. If I rake through this, I'm going to change that line every single time. And we'll stop there. So, from front to back, I've got a line that's level, right? So it's parallel to the floor, right? We're not on a slope, so it's completely parallel. So now if I was going to make this a one-length bob, all I have is this next panel. I would bring that next panel down and pop that in. That's a 2-section bob. You know, instead of like maybe 5, 6, 7 sections broken up by the front of the ear here, and then there's another through there. That's going to take a lot of time. So, you know, if there's more density, it's maybe a 3-section bob. So you're just going to get through it a lot quicker. Especially if you're going to layer that bob or you're going to graduate it. This is a great way of working through it to get through it more efficiently. So now what we're actually going to do is we're not going to bring this down because what I want to do is I want to graduate this line now. So what I'm doing is I'm going to graduate while maintaining this bob outline all the way through. So I'm going to use this bob outline as my guide. So if we look at this now, think about it. Everything has been brought down, right? So really, what's happening is this hair at the hairline is actually technically shorter than this hair above it because they've been brought to the same spot, but they come from different places on the head shape. So what I've done is I've literally brought everything down to 0. That's like bringing everything back to number 1 when you over-direct, right? So it's just going to get longer and heavier towards the front, isn't it? So that's what's happened this way. I've pulled that down, I've made it build. So if I look at this, now with a vertical section, and I just look at it with elevation, remember I brought it down to 0, but if I look at this with elevation now, I'm going to see a build-up of weight. That's shorter, that's getting longer. So if I take this hair now and I place that on top of this build-up of weight and cut longer, then I'm going to graduate this. So this is how it works. The larger the circle, right, so let's say I would have sectioned much lower, then the more I'm going to graduate this haircut. The smaller the circle, the less graduation. So all I want in this is I want that kind of really heavy bob, but I don't want it to be super one length. I want it to be a nice little bevel to it, right? So like super like late 80s, early 90s, heavy lob kind of thing. But instead of layering it, instead of coming through and taking weight out of it, we're actually going to build weight. And it's going to maintain a triangular shape. And what that means, guys, that means it's heavier at the front, it's going to get lighter towards the back. So I'm going to show you a little hair hack in how you can start at the front and keep it heavier and get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter towards the back, right? Generally, to do that, you have to start in the back and then you over-direct backwards, right? But then with the over-direction, you don't know if this is going to meet, right? Or if you're going to take some of that away. So I'm going to use that as my guide. So How we doing? All right.
Yeah, lots of love.
Good.
Yeah. No questions yet. And
That's good. That means I'm being thorough.
yeah, you're
Awesome.
explaining yourself well. We got lots of international watchers too, which is really
Welcome
cool.
everybody. It's great to have everybody here. What's awesome about Hairbrained is the international audience that we get to greet and cut hair for. So welcome. So let's get started. This has already been cut. So there's no point in me using any of that. All I need to use is I need the underneath as a guide. So my first section into this is a vertical. Make sure she's up right. So moving into the circle, right? Into the circle.
Ooh, coming in.
Into the circle. Into the circle. And you take a vertical diagonal back section. Right, so we're moving into the round section that was taken from the apex to the occipital ridge. And now what I've got is I've got a section that is angled. It's not a vertical straight up and down. It's got a slight angle to it. So if you think about a clock, that's going to be on the hour, isn't it? So now it's 5 after the hour and 25 minutes till. All right, that's the angle we're going for. We don't want to go more horizontal with it. Because if you start to move to horizontal, guys, then it becomes all about elevation, right?
Right.
We've already established this build-up by pulling everything down to 0 degrees. Now we've got this little bit that's not cut, so let's have a look at it. So I take that section, vertical diagonal back section. Remember, all this has been cut, so I'm only using the underneath as a guide for the top part. I'm going to have to bring this down, because I'm going to cut this on the outside of my fingers so you guys can see it better. That better?
Yeah, it's great with the white shirt. You can see, yeah.
That's why I wore white.
Yeah.
Right? Me and the chefs out there.
Yeah.
So, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing that build-up of weight. And what I want to do is just check off anything that I see that is excess. Now, there might not be anything through this front area, but there's going to be as we go through that other area. So, nice and heavy. Next section, vertical diagonal back. Remember, I'm keeping this super, super heavy, so that's why my circular section at the beginning wasn't big. Next section. Straight out from the head. Pushing it through all the way to the top there. So what's happening is I'm maintaining my outline and I'm beveling that edge through.
There's a question. Is this applicable to curly hair?
Yes, it is applicable to curly hair. The question is a great question. I'm working on wavy hair here, so it's really close to being curly. So there's an expansion that you're going to see with texture, you know. So now can you start to see? That is that excess hair. So all I'm doing is I'm following the buildup of weight that I have and taking off that excess length that's within that circular section. All the way through to the top. So a nice build-up of weight.
Yeah.
So it starts to take on that appearance of a layered bob, quite a heavy lob. But instead of having all that action through here, it's heavy. So all it is it's going to look like a real super heavy bob, a little bit of a triangular to it, but a real heavy bevel at the bottom. Instead of it being super kind of wedge triangular like rooftop, It's got that real heavy bevel to it. I like that shape. It's quite attractive to me to see that build up of the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Next section, vertical diagonal back. So my sections are parallel. And what's happening is I'm not using any over direction. I'm literally pulling straight out with each section as we move around. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is if I do push the hair forward, so if I move this forward into the previous, the inside of this haircut is actually going to get heavier towards the back. I actually want the inside to get lighter towards the back. Remember, there's more hair back here than there is in the front. So I'm leaving it heavier through the front. And what's happening, that little strip of graduation is doing this. It's getting wider and wider and wider towards the back. So what that's going to do is it's actually making it get shorter. How is that happening? Do you know what I mean? This is the hack I was telling you about. How am I starting at the front and getting lighter towards the back? It's all to do with the section angle and the fact that I'm building weight. I'm cutting graduation, I'm not layering. I'm creating a real internal graduation through here instead of more of an internal removal of weight through here. So I'm doing this. I'm building weight instead of taking that weight out. So what's happening is within that section, it means that the front of the section or the top of the section is actually in front of the base of the section. So if I'm cutting graduation on an angle like that, right, it means that the heaviest part is actually slightly in front of the shortest part. So when that falls, it actually falls triangular.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll keep doing that. But you have to use no over direction, because if you use over direction, it's just going to get heavier. So it's a little trick there for you guys. How do I know that? Experimentation, just playing around with it. And also spending the first decade of my career teaching at Vidal Sassoon and playing around with all these wonderful haircutting techniques that we had to know. I think that's the big thing, is the experimentation part. I often use it's like messing up over and over and over and over again, and you're just going to learn from that.
You learn more from messing up than you do from getting it right.
So just making sure, clean all the way through. So again, that underneath, remember we have this circular section. So that first section is the guide for everything. And all I'm doing is I'm just bringing that circular section over the top of it. I could have done this horizontally if I wanted to, right? Much more difficult though. Coming through vertically, much easier. So once I've hit that natural round of the head, my sections are now pivoting off the crown. If not, it gets weird. We don't want any weirdness. We want to keep it nice and fluid. Vertical diagonal back sections, pivoting off the crown. So again, no over direction. So how do I know I'm not over directing? I can see the top of the section in the direction of where it's going, right? I'm not stood directly in front of it. This is probably how I would normally stand to do this. In a demonstration situation, it's not the best, so that's why I choose to do it this way, so you can see it. So what I would do is I could use my mirror and have it placed here, right in front of each section, to make sure I'm not moving. But really, all I need to do is look at the top of that section to see where it's being directed to. And I can tell then if I'm boy racer outside.
Downtown.
I'm in the right spot. Yeah, we're in the city, so you'll hear some lovely textured ambience in the background. All sorts of fun down here.
Oh yeah, that looks good.
I'm thinking when you start looking this way too.
Mm-hmm.
You start to see what's happening with it. It's a nice heavy, well, I think I have a pre-done one. I'll look for it in a second after we finish this bit. And then I've got a couple more things I want to show you. Graduation is quite an interesting technique when you dive in there and try and figure it all out. And I want to show you a few different things on building weight and where to place weight and how to place weight and stuff. So we've showed you this. This is a bob with graduation. So you're seeing what I'm doing is I'm connecting down to that underneath part that was brought down. So it's like I'm connecting the dots all the way through. If I start over directing, those dots change and it gets weird. So I need to make sure that I pull straight out, and I'm always going to see that guide all the way through. Last section on this. So again, straight out, making sure it's not being pulled forward. And by pulling straight out, it means that I'll actually be lighter in the back, heavier towards the front. So when you're cutting on the outside of the fingers, I'm having to tell myself, don't drop the elbow, don't drop the elbow. And I'm conditioned as an educator, as a teacher, to do that. But if you're talking to the client, that's going to change. So the ideal body position for this tip for you guys in a salon situation is to work on the inside of your fingers and just pull straight out. Then you know it's coming straight out because it's coming to you. Right? So that's how I would work this through. And if you're an educator, you need to be able to show people everything, so you need to be able to work it the opposite way.
This technique is so salon friendly too.
Yeah,
It's
super salon friendly. So, and it's a variable, guys. I could have this length. We could have cut it right on her jawline this way. You know what I mean? So it's a great technique to work because you get that front in first, and then that client sees it. It's immediate, right? So what we've just done is I just want to recap. Nice triangular graduated heavy bob all the way through. Working from my outline first. So my outline I established by taking my front to back section in, which is from the apex to the occipital ridge. These two are both the same thing, they just live on different parts of the head shape. That part of the head shape is identical to this. Right? It's got the same curvature and points and all that kind of stuff. So when you connect the two, you get this perfect curve, don't you? So by doing that, I'm able to get a lot of weight covering the ear. So no jumps and no surprises. Don't risk making a mistake. Do you know what I mean? You don't get like extra gold stars. This is not school anymore. You know what I mean? Just because you started from the back to the front. You know what I mean? So get in there, make it a bit easier, get your outline in. So that's what I did. If I was going to do a full bob, I would have then brought this down and done the same thing. Really super heavy. But I wanted to bevel part of it, didn't I? So I actually used my underneath as a guide, because my underneath, if you look at it with elevation, is a build-up of weight. It's getting heavier. All the way up to the parting, right? So what I did is I just allowed for that, and I connected this circular section onto that. And because I worked diagonal back, with it being graduation, it actually falls shorter and lighter in the back, within the weight, and it gets heavy towards the front. But as you can see, I've kept the consistency of the outline. There is no up, down, ear business. It's not a graduated bob, it's a bob with graduation, right? It's not a Karen haircut because we've left this in there, right? Want to take that out, then it's a bit different, isn't it? It's a different flow to it.
right.
All right, so that's cool, right? That's something you guys can use immediately. You can do that haircut. Now, if I was going to do the same on the other side, it's the same exact process. I wouldn't keep coming all the way through. I'd establish my perimeter on both sides, because that's what gives me the guide, right? Make sure that this is even, and then I just work diagonal back sections, and I just cut the same exact thing all the way through, till I'm at the other side. What I want to do now though is I want to show you about placing weight in certain places, because anytime that you graduate, it's there to change this. Else why would you do it, right? Because remember, haircutting is the distribution of weight. So if I move weight somewhere, it's either going to not complement me or it's going to complement me, right? So I want to put the weight in the right spot. So what graduation is going to do now is it's going to take the weight from down here and push it even higher, right? So I want to show you how to put it on the jawline. I want to show you how to put it onto the cheekbones, that's what we call it, right? And just explore graduation and building weight and the beauty of it. I think of graduation, it's exactly like over direction, right? You know what I mean?
Mm.
So if I pull backwards or forwards, it gets heavier somewhere, doesn't it? Pull away from what you want to keep. So I want to get heavy in the front, pull it back. If I want to get heavy in the back, I pull it forwards, right? If I don't want it to get heavy, I just pull it straight out from the head, right? Now, if I pull the hair down, it gets heavier towards the top. That's graduation. That's what I want to explore and show a bit for you guys. So we're going to work from this front panel.
Lots of hearts.
Cool.
Yes.
I thought this would be good, you know, because we're always doing haircuts. So it's like me making another cookie or another cake. You know what I mean? The British Bake Off. But no, I want to show you how to be a chef. I want to show you how to fly the airplane instead of hitting autopilot. And you can adapt this to anything that you do. I think the world that we're going to cut in right now, we're talking about like the box bob or the French bob or the graduated bob. We're talking about those kind of, this region, right? So we're going to talk about structurizing the line and building off of that. I'm only going to do this panel, I'm not going to do the whole thing, it's just a waste of time. Whatever I do here, I would do there, right? So I just want to show you, placing the weight onto the jawline. Then I want to take the weight, keep the length, and push it onto the cheekbone. So let's do that.
Exposing that neck.
Yes, exactly. Now, the line you cut is going to affect this side view. So for example, we talk about shapes. Let's do this one.
Which, oh, okay.
So when we talk about shapes, we've got round, square, and triangular. They're the most primary shapes that we have. Just like colours, you'd have to start adding them together and you're going to find other ones, right? And that's the same with technique. So what we've got here is, if you see round, the line is going to descend towards the back, right? So that's going to open up this area more. Then we've got square. It's actually going to fill this area in more and this area, right? Then we've got triangular, which is actually going to open this area up and fill that. It's the opposite to round, right? So that's kind of what you want to look at is, what line do I want to cut? Well, what do I want to see here? Or what don't I want to see? Right
here.
If I open that up, we're going to see this mannequin has one chin, right?
Just
I've
one.
got two. So three, right? And clients have that too. So you got to think about it. Do I want to really expose all that? Might look good that way, but does it look good that way? Right? Remember, 3 dimensions. Look at all of them, not just one. Don't look at Instagram. It's 1 dimension. It's 2 dimensional. You see in that view, right? Let's do that view. Let's see everything. So I'm going to cut a line. In this instance, I'm going to go with the jawline. Right, let's accentuate and go with it. So in reality, this haircut's going to have more of a triangular balance to it, right? I could do round, because I could open up that, but I'm going to choose triangular. It's my favorite. Why do I choose triangular? Why is it my favorite? Look at the bone structure of the face. This is a mannequin. It's a really good pivot point mannequin. It's got great bone structure like we do, right? It's not one of those mannequins that doesn't look anything like us, right? It has the patterns of where the bone structure is and where it's supposed to be. So if you look at the jawline, it is angled, triangular. If you look at the cheekbones, it's angled that way too. So is the nose, the lip, you know, even the neckline, forehead, right? So it's complementary. So I'm going to switch the angle of my section to actually match that. So there's the angle of the jawline. We're just going to go with that. That might be a bit too angled. And I'm going to establish my perimeter. So we're going to bring this down, on that down, and down. Again, it's very similar to what I just did. I don't want to rake it from there all the time, so I loosen any excess tension. And I pull a little bit longer. Hair shrinks. So that's what I want to work from.
Bazinga.
Okay?
Right in there.
Right on the jawline.
Yep.
So now I want to graduate on that line. So that means we're going to have to use elevation now. So this is where it gets all funky, because this is where people start shouting numbers, right? Like we're playing bingo, right? So here, I'm going to pull the first section. Let's bring it down now.
Bring it
I'm
down.
going to pull the first section basically to like my belly button belt buckle, keeping it above the waist, right? So I'm going to bring number 2 down onto that. Now someone's going to say 45 degrees. How do we know? So I'm not going to say 45 degrees. I don't know that it's at 45. It may be, but it also might be at 52 degrees. So I'm just using a slight elevation on it, and I'm going to keep it in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I know what my elevation is? I would put my mirror right here, right where you guys are, just to see what my elevation is. So now I know where my visual is to bring all of this to. Because now what I'm going to do, I want to put the weight on there, so that's where I'm going to stay. If I start to elevate higher, I'll push the weight higher. That's how it goes. It's like using less over direction. I'm still going to get heavier, but not as heavy. So I want it to be the heaviest graduation that it can be in this particular position. So I'm going to bring everything down onto my first section. That means I can take larger sections because I have a stationary guideline. But I don't want to take a section that takes me into another area of the head shape. I want to make sure everything's clean and consistent into my hands. This is graduation. Graduation is construction, right? Layering is like organized demolition and sometimes not organized, right? So you've got to be careful on this technique. I'm bringing it to the same spot that I did those other 2. So it's a stationary guideline. I am cutting past my second knuckle, all right? Some people are going to have an issue with this. The thing is, I'm not a beginner. As an educator, that is definitely something that we will teach you not to do so that you don't cut yourself. Once you have control over what you do, you're able to use it to your advantage. I don't have a gap there because I know how to hold my fingers so that there's no gap there. So again, it's learning to ride the bike and being in control of the bike, right? Same thing with scissors. You're literally learning to ride a bike when you use these things, except these things are super sharp. Same thing, a bike, you can fall off and hurt yourself. Be careful. Everything down onto that first section. How do I know I'm at the right spot? Belt buckle. Find a place, and then don't adjust the height, because that place will be different, won't it? So find that spot, and how do I know I'm at the right spot? Look how clean my guide will now become. It's actually quite strong in there. So just bringing everything to one stationary position. I'm sure some of you guys are going to want a number, aren't you?
No, everybody's just, yeah, watching.
Well, I think, we just get caught up in the whole 45-degree situation. But There is more than 45 degrees.
Yeah.
Graduation is 1 degree to 89. So don't limit it to just one particular build-up of weight. Not everybody wants that, right?
Right.
You might want that angle of weight build-up or even lower. So you see it's now beveled into the jawline. And there's my build-up of weight. Now what you'll see in the build-up of weight, it's rounded. I'm not going to come through there and just cross-check that off. See, what happens when you use horizontal sections and you use elevation to create graduation is it creates a more beveled graduation. That's what happens when you take horizontal sections, you have a greater chance of creating a bevel. Now if I was to cut this vertically, I would actually cut through that. So vertical graduation is much leaner than horizontal graduation. So keep that in mind as well. Stationary guideline, I've just got two more sections, sorry. And then we'll switch the build-up and move it to a different place.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it beveled that way because of the head shape underneath, the way that you're taking the horizontal sections? Is that why it gets beveled?
Well, no, it's because, it has to be because of the head shape.
Right.
Because if you flip it around, and if I work vertical sections, and then I check horizontally, that's going to be more curved.
Right.
But if I cut with horizontal, that's going to be flat.
And it'll be beveled.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The section angle you're cutting is the flatter dimension. It's the opposite that you create with movement. It becomes rounder.
I see.
We're nerding out.
Yeah. I'm still learning every time he talks about hair cutting.
So we've got a class coming up, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
We have a Knowledge Destroy Sphere razor class coming up.
Yeah.
It's a virtual class. You guys can sign up on through my Instagram, and it's on June 28th. Shags, Bobs, and Pixies.
3 haircuts and...
Yeah, 3 haircuts, 3 hours, just full on info. As you can see, we really love to talk about what and why and how and all that stuff. So everything on this panel has been brought down to that first section used with elevation. No idea what the actual degree of elevation is, but we know that we pulled it to about my belly button region. Keeping that line consistent, and again I'm cutting it behind the cheekbone. That's where it's going to be worn. If I start cutting it over here, then she moves it back, you're going to see some weirdness going on in here. So be very careful.
Such an important part.
Yeah, it's like the side is from the cheekbone to the same round. This is actually a vertical round right here. This is the same as this. Feel that? That's your cheekbone in the back. It's literally what it is. Yeah. It's the same spot. Right?
Right.
So once you start understanding the terrain, the landscape, the haircuts start to work much better for you. So look, we've got a nice, see that lives behind the cheekbone, everything lines up now.
That looks great.
And obviously we're not blow drying this, but it still has that texture. And you can see that graduation.
The expansion.
On my shirt.
Yeah, there we go.
You can see it pointing in towards that jawline, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's placing the weight on the jawline, guys. I love this exercise because it really just nails it in there. So now what I want to do is, I want to take that weight line, right? So right now it's kind of like that much. I'm going to push it higher. I'm going to keep my outline, but I'm going to push that weight line up. And so now we're going to accentuate the cheekbone. So I'm going to go back to that first and second section to alter the build-up of weight. So that's my first section. And I'm going to take that section and I'm going to pull that straight off the head.
Am I in your way?
I could see it better now. There we go.
There we go.
You can come in if you want. There we go.
Yeah.
So I'm literally just pulling it straight off the head, right? And all I'm going to do is clean that line up with elevation. Now we're going to change it. So now I'm going to bring 2, and I'm going to bring 2 onto number 1. So I'm going to bring it into my previous section. Now the size of the section has to be spot on here, because if it's too big, then I pull the hair too low, because I'm going too high up the head too quickly. So you want to kind of keep your sections appropriately sized to you. Now, no wider or thicker than one of the fingers I'm using to cut the hair with. So if I had like bigger fingers than this, as we say Shrek fingers, then it's going to have to be much smaller, guys. Because you're going to affect that build-up of weight by taking bigger sections and that. Make sure they're consistent. So now I'm going to take, let's get a bit of water on this side.
She's drying out.
So bring number 1 out again, and bring 2 down onto 1. And then I can immediately see the difference. Because remember, we were pulling down to a much lower elevation before. So let me show you that. There it is. See it?
Mm-hmm.
Joining that one. So into the previous now. And I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to bring down into my previous. So it's a traveling guide. I'm pushing that weight higher up the head. And then when I know I want the weight at that place, I then bring everything else down onto it. So I get rid of number 1, not needed. Number 2 comes straight out from the head. Number 3 goes down onto number 2. Nice and clean. Now look at the build-up. See how the build-up isn't as heavy as it was before?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not pulling it down onto that first section. I'm bringing it down onto my previous. So it's like using over direction, but I'm only over directing into my previous section. Not down onto the first. So I'll get rid of number 1 and number 2. Just need number 3, and I'm going to bring 4 down onto 3. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening here is I'm just pushing the weight higher and higher up the head. So if you understand that elevation is just the same as over direction, you're pulling away from something you want to keep. That's what you do in haircut. All those notes on that board, guys, they all mean the same thing. Pull away from what you want to keep. And that's exactly what I'm doing through here. I'm pulling down.
It's such a good visual and so amazing, just changing the technique a little bit and how much it changes the shape and knowing it's game changer.
It is game changing. It's being in control. It's being able to change it and move it according to the person. To me, that's what you call suitability.
Mm-hmm.
If you cookie cut something, it's always going to end up in the same spot. And it might not look right. So how do you know how to change that then? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So again, instead of being a cook who just follows somebody else's recipes, which is what I do, I watch YouTube and cook things, you know? Learn how to be a chef so you know all the ingredients. Learn how to fly the plane. So what we've done is we've moved all the way up to the natural round of the head. And if you notice, from this point forward up, the landscape is no longer vertical. It's not a vertical drop now, it's the top of a cliff, right? It's the roof of the building that we are building. So for me to now keep bringing into my previous, I'll be doing this all the way through. I'll be pushing that weight line even higher. So what it's going to do is it's going to make it even flatter, right? I don't want that. I want it on the jaw, I mean on the cheekbone. So I'm going to start now to bring the hair to the round of the head. So I've now reached a stationary position, and I'm going to start bringing everything down onto that. So again, it's stationary. So just being in control of where you place weight, being able to put it where you want it. And I thought this would be a good one for you guys. So again, I'm bringing down onto that hair, out the natural round of the head, the parietal ridge. Again, I'm keeping the hair behind the cheekbone. It's a stationary guideline, so I can bring all of that onto it. Now I've just got to make sure that I can see my guide and I can control the hair. Behind the cheekbone. Using the HB AG scissors, these are awesome. I want to thank Hairbrain for giving me these scissors, and I've been really enjoying using them. So look at this build-up of weight now.
Look at that.
Against my shirt. So it's a different build-up, it's not as heavy as before. So if I pull down to number 1, I get a much heavier build-up of weight. But by bringing to the previous, then stopping at the round of the head and bringing down, it now takes my weight line and push my weight line up here. You see that weight line? So now look, we're standing in the front. Look at where the weight accentuates now.
Yep.
More on the cheekbone, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. So, let's just go one step further. Have we got time? What time is it gone?
9:55.
We've got 5 minutes.
5 minutes, you can do it.
You got
Push
it.
this, okay?
You
I
got
don't
it.
know if we've got 5 minutes, but I was thinking 9 to 10, so. Let's go back to the round of the head. Back to this section here. And then we're going to pull down into the previous, right? So I'm going to need to drop it down over here. I'm going to need the elevation. So down into the previous, not down to the one below the round of the head. So continuing what I was doing before. So now I'm going to use this as a guide for the next one. So, you know, I don't have
Uh-oh.
any clips on me. I'm going to steal one from this side. I can
Clip
clip
guy.
that away. So I know where my guide is. My next section is going to come onto this section, isn't it? So now I'm using straight out from the head still. So my guide isn't always 90, isn't it? See, this is where people go, whoa, is he layering? No, because look, I'm pulling down into my previous. I'm getting longer and longer. That's a build-up of weight, that's graduation. So again, just using my previous. All the way through. Into my previous. So you see I'm pulling this down, still keeping it with graduation, and all the way through. There we go. 2 more sections and then we're done. So what we're doing now is we're just pushing that weight even higher into what we call internal graduation. So my elevation is in the higher areas, it's like closer towards layering now. into that breeze. And there we go. So pure internal graduation now. Because what I've done is my elevation has gone higher than the natural round of the head. So I'm just pushing the weight higher and higher. So it's all, this is just like me over-directing into the previous section all the way from back to front or front to back. I'm getting slightly heavier towards the top. Or I'm getting slightly heavier towards the back or slightly heavier towards the front. And what's also good to do is to play the opposite way. Work from here down and play with over direction or elevation that way. That's concave layering. Concave layering is the opposite to graduation. So you can play with this as well, just like you can play with that. That's what's beautiful about cutting hair. You pull away from what you want to keep in absolutely every aspect of it. So not only with over direction and elevation, but you're also using finger angle that pulls away from what you want to keep. So that's pulling below 90. That's 90. So what I've done there is I've just taken that build-up of weight. My weight line now is not here, it's up here. It's much lighter. So it's much flatter and leaner in my build-up now.
Look at that.
So external graduation is more like this. Because I'm pulling these top lengths lower, it leaves this much heavier in here. Whereas internal, it takes us above the round of the head and continues to get heavier. So it makes this leaner, whereas this is much wider. So it's still the same concept. I'm still keeping my outline and I'm still building weight. But again, how heavy do I want it to be? If I over-direct back, how heavy do I want it to get towards the front? It's the same thing as this. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. It was great to spend an hour with you in our morning here. We really appreciate you tuning in from all over the world. I want to thank everybody here that's helped me film this morning and everybody that's tuned in. And I want to thank our friends at Hairbrained for making all of this possible. Again, you can get a lot of what I've talked about today from HB Live. You can also get it from me at knowledgedestroysfear.com. You can get this particular situation that we did. And join us every Monday on my Instagram, Daniel Joseph Muldoon, where we go live, usually 11 a.m. Pacific time, and that's free. It's for everybody. And again, thank you so much for watching us. Cheers.
Yay.